Close your eyes and take a deep breath. You are home now, and the world outside can wait. Welcome to another episode of Z in History. We don't think much about the bathroom today. It is just a quiet room where a lever makes everything disappear into a hidden world of pipes. This is a mechanical miracle we take for granted, but for most of history, managing waste was the hardest problem to solve. Humans need water to live, but being near waste makes us sick. Our ancestors spent thousands of years fighting a battle of proximity, trying to keep those two things separate. In the ancient world, there was no away. There was only a long walk to a river, a hole in the dirt, or a pot under your bed. You lived with the reality of your biology. We will explore how we went from riverbanks to Roman sewers and the inventors who obsessed over pipe shapes to stop a bad smell. As you settle into your blankets, feel the peace of your clean home. Chapter 1: The Riverbank. Before there were cities, there were small groups of people moving through the landscape. Life was dictated by the logic of the earth. You stayed where the food grew and the water flowed. This created a problem every living creature faces. If you stay in one spot too long, it becomes messy. For the early nomad, the solution was simple. You moved. You walked away from the sleeping mats and let the earth handle the rest. It was a manual system that relied on the vastness of the world. Compared to the modern bathroom, which is contained in a few square feet, the ancient world used the entire horizon as its plumbing system. You didn't have a room, you had a direction. The river was the first great machine. Early humans realized that moving water was a cleaning tool. If you sat by a fast stream, the water did the work for you. It carried waste downstream, away from the camp and the drinking supply. This was the first version of a way. It was a mechanical process provided by nature. But this system had a flaw. If another group lived a mile downstream, your solution became their problem. The river didn't make waste disappear. It just moved it to someone else's front door. This was the beginning of the realization that sanitation is a shared responsibility. When the weather turned cold, the riverbank felt very far. Imagine leaving a warm fire and walking through tall grass in the dark just to find a spot that wouldn't ruin the camp. There were no lights or paved paths. In our modern life, we walk 10 steps and flip a switch. For a nomad, staying clean was a logistical hike. As groups started to stay in one place, they couldn't just walk away. They began digging pits. This was the first step toward fixed plumbing. A pit is a storage system that uses soil to filter and contain. But a pit fills up. The nomadic brain had to become a settler's brain. They had to manage a space used by the same people every day. They were tethered to the ground, and they had to master it. Chapter 2: The Indus Grid, 5,000 years ago. In what is now Pakistan and northwest India, people stopped just digging holes and started thinking like engineers. The Indus Valley civilization realized that for thousands of people to live together, you need a grid. They built homes with baked bricks and included the world's first real bathrooms. These weren't just corners of a room. They were specific spaces with waterproof floors made of tightly fitted bricks. They understood that water is heavy and destructive, so they tilted the floors at a slight angle. This used the simple logic of gravity to pull water toward a single point in the wall. It was a deliberate design that separated the living space from the utility space. Outside the house, the system grew even more impressive. Every home was connected to a main street drain. These weren't open, messy ditches. They were covered channels made of stone. If you walked down a street in Mohenjo-Daro, you wouldn't see the waste. It moved silently beneath your feet. We often imagine the past as smelly, but these people were more organized than many European cities would be 4,000 years later. They had manhole covers made of loose bricks so workers could clear out clogs. It was a maintenance system that mirrors exactly what city workers do today. You could walk the streets in clean sandals because the system was tucked away. The mechanics were simple. You sat over a hole leading to a vertical clay pipe. This pipe dropped the waste into the street drain. To keep things moving, people poured jars of water down the hole. This was the manual version of the flush. It required a human to move the water, but once it started, gravity took over. They even built soak pits outside city walls where solid waste would settle while liquid soaked into the earth. They were filtering their impact before the word environment existed. The Indus grid proved that a city is only as good as the pipes hidden underneath its streets. They traded the freedom of the river for the stability of a brick-lined life. Chapter 3: The Roman Social. The Romans turned the drain into a monumental feat of engineering. In Rome, the Cloaca Maxima was a massive stone tunnel that served as the city's main artery for waste. It was so large and well built that parts of it remain today. But the Roman approach to the bathroom was very different from our modern idea of privacy. To a Roman, the latrine was a public, social space. You didn't go into a private stall and lock a door. You walked into a large room with long stone benches lining the walls. These benches had holes cut into them at regular intervals, and you would sit right next to your neighbor, often chatting about the news or the price of grain. It was a communal experience that stripped away the modern taboo of the act. The mechanics beneath the bench were brilliant. Underneath the seating area, a constant stream of water flowed through a deep trench. This wasn't water that someone had to pour. It was often the overflow from the city's many aqueducts. The Romans realized that if you have a continuous flow of water, the waste never has a chance to sit and smell. It is swept away immediately by the current. It was a high-capacity, automated system that ran 24 hours a day. While we sit in a silent room today with a tank that refills after every use, the Romans sat over a rushing underground river that never stopped moving. The water provided a constant white noise, masking the sounds of people around you to keep clean. They used a xylospangum, a sea sponge attached to a wooden stick. In front of the benches, a smaller channel of fresh water was carved into the floor to rinse the sponge. These were shared, a detail that feels strange today, but for Romans, this was the peak of hygiene. They traded the comfort of privacy for the efficiency of a massive, gravity-fed system. As you lie in bed, think about that constant sound of rushing water beneath the stone. It was the sound of a civilization that figured out how to keep 1 million people healthy by never letting the water stop. Chapter 5: The Night Soil. As cities like London and Paris grew, the long drop was no longer an option. Houses were packed together along narrow streets. There was no space for vertical chutes, and the ground was crowded with foundations. This created a manual system known as the cesspool. Most houses had a brick-lined pit buried in the cellar. Unlike Roman sewers that moved waste with water, these pits simply held it. It was a static system. When the pit reached its limit, the problem became a crisis. This is where the nightmen emerged. Because the smell was overwhelming, the law stated these pits could only be emptied in the middle of the night. Imagine lying in bed, but instead of silence, you heard the thud of wooden buckets and iron wheels on the stones outside. The nightmen would climb into the dark pits by candlelight, shoveling waste into buckets to carry through the house to the street. This material was called night soil because it moved under the cover of darkness. It was a heavy, physical system that required a chain of men and horses to keep a street habitable. It was the grit beneath the city's glamour. The logic of this system was circular. The night soil wasn't just dumped. It was a valuable product. Farmers would buy the waste to use as fertilizer, creating a manual recycling loop. The nutrients from city food went back into the soil to grow the next year's crop. Today, we use chemical fertilizers, but for centuries, the city's survival depended on men moving heavy loads through midnight streets. It was a system built on muscle and the necessity of a way. Living with a cesspool meant you were always aware of your home's capacity. You couldn't use as much water as you wanted, because every gallon was another bucket the nightmen had to carry. In our modern world, the pipes under your floor are effectively infinite. As you sink into your mattress, appreciate the silence. You don't have to listen for the clatter of the cart or wonder if the pit in your basement is reaching its limit. You live in a world where the night is for sleeping. Chapter 6: The Chamber Pot. While the nightmen worked in the streets, life inside the home revolved around a humble ceramic object, the chamber pot. Before indoor plumbing was standard, most people kept a pot de chambre tucked under the bed. It was the ultimate portable solution for a society that lacked pipes. In the middle of a cold winter night, nobody wanted to walk across a frozen yard to an outhouse. The chamber pot allowed you to stay within the warmth of your blankets, solving the problem of proximity with a simple glazed bowl. It was the primary interface between humans and their biology for centuries. Found in both the poorest huts and the grandest palaces, it was a simple tool for a complicated need. The mechanics were entirely manual. It was a containment system that required daily labor. Every morning, the slops had to be emptied. In large households, this task fell to servants who carried the pots to a collection point. In crowded tenements, the process was more direct. People would often lean out of windows and empty the contents into the street. In Edinburgh, this was accompanied by the cry of God, a warning to those below. It was a chaotic, airborne version of a sewer system that relied on the hope that pedestrians were paying attention. This created a culture of concealment. Pot lids were decorative, and wooden cabinets called commodes were built to hide the ceramic bowls. We still use the word commode today, a linguistic fossil from a time when the bathroom was a hidden box in the bedroom. The chamber pot was a reminder that even in a world of silk, the needs of the body remained constant. It was a fragile system. A dropped pot meant a disaster for the rug. It lacked the flush and forget luxury we enjoy now. You don't have a ceramic bowl waiting under the bed, and you don't have a morning ritual of emptying slops. Your home is a closed loop, sealed off by porcelain and wax rings. The chamber pot was the last step before the modern age, a small bridge between the ancient pit and the mechanical future. It was the best humans could do before they learned to make water do the heavy lifting. Chapter 7: The Espen Secret. For centuries, the biggest obstacle to indoor plumbing wasn't moving the waste out. It was keeping the smell from coming back in. Even if you had a pipe leading to a sewer, that pipe acted like a chimney, venting the foul, toxic gases of the underground directly into your living room. In 1775, Alexander Cummings patented a device that solved this with a simple piece of geometry. The S. By curving the pipe into an S shape, a small amount of water remained trapped in the dip of the curve after every flush. This water acted as an airtight seal. It allowed waste to pass through, but prevented the miasma of the sewers from rising back up into the house. It was a silent, liquid gatekeeper that made the modern bathroom possible. Without the aspect, the toilet was a health hazard and a nuisance. Before this invention, early water closets were terrifying devices that often leaked or exploded with sewer gas. Cummings' design was later refined by Thomas Crapper into the U-bend we see under our sinks today. The logic is flawless. Use the water itself to block the air. It required no moving parts, no electricity, and no maintenance. It was a passive, mechanical triumph. This single curve in a lead or ceramic pipe changed the architecture of the world. It meant the bathroom could finally move from a shed in the backyard or a cabinet in the bedroom to a permanent, plumbed-in room inside the heart of the home as you lie there. Think about the pipes hidden behind your walls. Just a few feet from your head, there is likely a U-bend holding a small pool of water. It is sitting there, perfectly still, protecting your sleep from the world of the sewers. It is a humble piece of engineering, but it is the reason your home smells like laundry or candles. Instead of the great stink of the 1800s, we don't see it. And we rarely think about it, but that stagnant pool of water is the most important guard in your house. It is the secret that allowed us to bring the river inside without bringing the river's rot along with it. Chapter 8: The Great Stink. In the summer of 1858, the City of London came to a grinding halt because of a crisis known as the Great Stink. For decades, the population had exploded and the old cesspools were overflowing. To solve this, the city began dumping everything directly into the River Thames. During an unusually hot July, the river, which was also the city's primary source of drinking water, became a thick, fermenting soup of human waste. The smell was so powerful that it permeated the curtains of the nearby Parliament. Lawmakers were seen fleeing the building with handkerchiefs pressed to their faces. They even soaked the curtains in chloride of lime to stop the stench. But the sheer volume of the rot was too much for chemistry to handle. This was the turning point for modern civil engineering. The government realized that they could no longer rely on the away logic of the past. They hired Joseph Bazalgette to build a massive, interconnected network of brick sewers that would intercept the waste before it reached the river and carry it far out to the sea. Bazalgette's plan was a gargantuan undertaking, involving 82 miles of main intercepting sewers and 1,100 miles of street sewers. He insisted on making the pipes much larger than necessary, a decision that allows London's Victorian infrastructure to still function today. He didn't just build for the city he built for the city that was coming. The Great Stink proved that sanitation isn't just a personal choice. It's a matter of national survival. It forced the world to stop thinking of the toilet as a standalone chair and start thinking of it as a terminal in a massive city-wide machine. When you flush today, you are engaging with a legacy of that hot London summer. You are tapping into a hidden subterranean highway designed to keep the air clear and the water safe. The smell of the past was a warning that led to the invisible, clean convenience of the present. You can breathe easy tonight because Bazalgette decided to build his tunnels big, enough to swallow the waste of 1 million people without a sound. Chapter 9: The Porcelain Throne. By the late 19th century, the mechanics were in place, but the aesthetics had to catch up. The bathroom transitioned from a functional utility to a symbol of status. This is the era of the porcelain throne. Potters like Josiah, Wedgwood, and Thomas Twyford realized that if the toilet was going to be a permanent fixture in the home, it shouldn't look like a piece of industrial equipment. They began using vitreous china, a material that was non-porous, easy to clean, and could be molded into beautiful flowing shapes. The toilet became an art piece, often decorated with hand-painted floral patterns or lion claw feet. It was no longer a hidden shame. It was a gleaming centerpiece of the modern Victorian household. The washout and washdown designs replaced the old noisy valves of the early inventors. These new toilets used the force of falling water from a high-mounted tank to create a siphonic action. This used the weight of the water to pull the contents of the bowl out through the S-bend in one swift, clean motion. It was the first time the process felt truly automated and hygienic. The high-level cisterns, with their long pole chains, became the iconic image of the era. The sound of that rushing water was the sound of progress. It meant that the user no longer had to handle buckets or worry about mechanical failures. The machine had become reliable enough to be invisible. Today, your toilet is likely lower to the ground with a tank that sits directly on the bowl, but the material is almost exactly the same. We still use fired clay and glass glazes, because nothing else stands up to water and wear quite as well. The throne is now a quiet, ergonomic tool designed for comfort and efficiency. It is the final stop in a 5,000-year journey that began on a riverbank. As you drift off to sleep, appreciate the cold, clean surface of the porcelain in the next room. It is a monument to human persistence. We took a messy, dangerous necessity and turned it into a silent, white, reliable companion that guards our health while we dream. Chapter 10: The Siphon's Surge. By the early 20th century, the high-mounted cistern began to descend, moving from its perch near the ceiling to a position directly behind the bowl. This change wasn't just about saving space. It was about mastering the physics of the siphon. The modern toilet is a gravity-powered jet engine. When you push the handle, a flush valve opens, allowing a large volume of water to rush into the bowl in seconds. This sudden surge fills the internal trapway, creating a vacuum. Because water is cohesive, the weight of the water falling through the pipe pulls the rest of the bowl's contents along with it. This is the siphonic actioner, silent, powerful tug that clears the bowl using nothing but the weight of the water itself. This era also saw the standardization of the bowlcock assembly. The floating mechanism inside your tank, it is a simple, elegant feedback loop. As the water level drops, the bowl falls, opening a valve to refill the tank. As the water rises, the bowl floats back up, eventually pinching the valve shut. This ensures that the toilet is always armed and ready for the next use without any human intervention. It is one of the few machines in your home that works perfectly without electricity or computer chips. It relies on the unchanging laws of buoyancy and leverage. It is a set-to-unforget-it miracle that has remained virtually unchanged for over 100 years. As you lie in the dark, listen to the silence of your house. There is no dripping, no rushing, and no manual refilling. The water waits patiently in the tank, held back by a simple rubber flapper and a plastic float. We have moved from the chaotic gardy-loo of the streets to a world of pressurized precision. The siphon is the final guardian of your comfort, a physical force that ensures your home remains a sanctuary. You can sleep peacefully knowing that the most complex problem of human history was solved with a curve of pipe and a floating ball. Chapter 11: The Global Flow. As we look to the future, the story of the toilet is becoming one of conservation. For most of history, the goal was simply to move waste away. We used as much water as necessary to get the job done. But in the modern world, we've realized that fresh water is a finite resource. This has led to the low-flow revolution. Engineers have redesigned the internal geometry of the porcelain once again, using computer modeling to map the exact path of the water. By narrowing the trapway and adjusting the angle of the jets, modern toilets can achieve the same powerful siphon using less than half the water of their Victorian ancestors. It is a triumph of efficiency over brute force. Beyond the water-saving tank, we are seeing the rise of high-tech sanitation. In places like Japan, the toilet has become a sophisticated health tool, featuring heated seats, integrated bidets, and even sensors that can monitor your biological data. Meanwhile, in parts of the world without traditional sewer infrastructure, inventors are creating dry toilets that turn waste into energy or fertilizer without using a single drop of water. We are returning to the circular logic of the nightmen, but with the precision of 21st century science. The goal is no longer just a way. The goal is recovery. We are learning to close the loop without sacrificing the cleanliness we've worked so hard to achieve. Chapter 12: The Hidden Treatment. The story doesn't actually end when the water leaves your site. It simply shifts into a massive industrial scale. Once the siphon pulls the waste through your floor, it enters a network of lateral pipes that slope gently downward toward the street. These pipes are the veins of the city, relying on a constant, calculated descent of 1/4 inch per foot. If the slope is too steep, the water outruns the solids. If it is too shallow, everything stalls. This invisible geometry keeps the city moving. Eventually, your contribution joins millions of others in a main interceptor line, heading toward a treatment plant, a sprawling, mechanical lung that cleans the water so the cycle can begin again at the treatment plant. The process is a beautiful mimicry of nature, accelerated by machines. Large screens first catch the debris that shouldn't be there, followed by settling tanks where gravity does the work of the ancient soak pits, allowing solids to sink to the bottom. But the real magic is biological. Massive tanks of activated sludge use billions of hungry bacteria to consume the organic matter. We have effectively tamed the very germs that used to make us sick, putting them to work in a controlled environment to purify the water. It is a massive, living machine that works 24 hours a day, to ensure that the away we rely on is a responsible, clean destination. Think about the sheer scale of this cooperation as you settle into your pillow. Thousands of people, miles of underground tunnels, and billions of microorganisms are all working in concert just because you pushed a lever. In the ancient world, waste was a threat to the community. Today, it is a managed resource. The water that leaves your home today might be the water that flows through a park, fountain next week, or cools a power plant next month. The loop is tightening, becoming smarter and more efficient. You are part of a grand, hidden system that protects the collective health of millions while you sleep in total, individual peace. Chapter 13: The Future of the Flush. As we look toward the next century, the throne is evolving into a digital guardian. In the near future, your toilet might not just be a disposal tool, but a diagnostic one. Engineers are developing sensors that can analyze waste in real time, checking for early signs of illness, hydration levels, or even nutritional deficiencies before you even feel a symptom. The bathroom is moving from a place of waste to a place of wellness. By integrating technology into the porcelain, we are turning the most private moment of the day into a proactive health check. It is the ultimate evolution of the Indus Valley's desire for a better life through better plumbing. We are also seeing the return of the no-water logic, but with a high-tech twist. In water-scarce regions, the omniprocessor and similar technologies are turning waste into clean drinking water and electricity on site. This removes the need for expensive, massive sewer networks, allowing developing cities to leapfrog directly into the future. We are learning how to decouple sanitation from the water supply, ensuring that a clean life doesn't have to come at the cost of a thirsty planet. The riverbank was the first step, and the waterless recovery is the last. We are finally learning how to live on the earth without leaving a trace. Your journey through the history of the bathroom is complete. You have traveled from the open fields of the nomads to the high-tech, data-driven bathrooms of tomorrow. You've seen how every civilization is defined by how it handles its mess, and how each breakthrough brought us closer to the comfort you feel right now. The pipes are quiet. The water is clean. The air in your room is fresh and still. You are the master of a system that kings would have envied, and it all works perfectly without you saying a word. Close your eyes, let go of the day, and rest in the silent, mechanical success of the modern world. Good night.